Hello, hello, the doc is in, and welcome. So, recently, a pretty cool and interesting chapter of Black Clover came out, chapter 331. And we got a quite major reveal by the end of that chapter. Julius, oh well, spoilers first off. I just said chapter 331 is a recent chapter. I mean, if you didn't get the idea that I was going to be talking about the chapter at this point, to be clear, I'm talking about the chapter. Don't complain about spoilers in the video if you just heard me explain that there's going to be spoilers about the chapter. Alright, cool. Anyway, so at the end of the chapter, we get the reveal that Julius is not Julius. Julius is Lucius, and he is, more so to be exact, Lucius Zogratis. Alright? There's the fourth Zogratis sibling, eldest brother of Xenon, Dante, and what's her name? Can't remember her name, but the girl. Alright? Bear with me. If you saw my video from Jujutsu Kaisen, also watch that video. But if you saw my video from Jujutsu Kaisen, algae season, dying, becoming very slow, still a doctor though, respect my PhD. But much either way, fourth Zogratis sibling has been revealed. It has been theorized for a while since the time of the flashback about like where is the fourth Zogratis sibling. Apparently, we had met him many times because he was Julius. Interesting. And so, this video, I kind of want to talk about like the implications, like what is the ramifications of this reveal, like what does this mean to the overall story, and what does it mean to our introduction in life with Julius earlier on in the story. So where I want to start with is just this arc, well, the new arc, we don't have a name for it, I guess we call it the Astaroth arc, patent pending, but the previous arc we had the fight against the Zogratis siblings, I guess you call it Spain Kingdom arc, whatever. The last section we're fighting against Lucifero, and there's a lot of controversy around the idea of like, oh, the defeat of Lucifero was so easy, and everybody kind of just lives in the end, and everybody was being real butthurt by the end of 330. Now, I'm gonna give my statement. All right, I thought it was kind of weird that Yami and Noct survived, because in my personal opinion, like the way the situation was set up was very nicely done for like maybe end of their character arc. I mean, like maybe not Noct, I guess you could say Noct could have survived, but Yami, it would have been fine for him to die in that situation, right? But the author decided to let him live and bring him back to life. And logically speaking, even if you don't like the fact that he's alive and that he survived that situation, it's like, come on, you can't complain about it and be like, oh well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it makes logical sense. I mean, that whole situation, like even when I saw Mimosa show up and her be like, oh, I have no magic, like I instantly thought, oh, where's Charmy at? Charmy could just give her some food and she can just heal them. Like, it felt obvious. So in that respect, I feel like people, should lay off the author. All right, let him do his story. If this is how he wants to do it, let him do it that way. And not only that, but we gotta remember, previously, prior to like the big announcement about like Black Clover going into his final arc and all the 3-month break and everything, previously before this, the author had previously mentioned that he wanted the story to go like super long. So it's possible that the author, even to like the last chapter, kind of like had hopes that his story would be able to go much longer, and maybe he had plans of like killing a lot of these characters, like more main characters, further on in the story, like making their death more impactful. Now, given that I'm not trying to make excuses for him, like I said, I still thought it was weird, but I'm just saying, respect the author's vision for how they want to run their story. But with all that being said, with the reveal in the most recent chapter, people have been going back and they're looking at like stuff from like the most recent arc, and one Twitter user multiple people have agreed with this person and have run this theory, but one particular Twitter user basically says that it is possible that Julius, and by extension Lucius, was reversing time during the course of the fight to get the most desired outcome from the fight. And this can be told by the fact that from chapter 274 to chapter 289, we see a bunch of different clock towers that each say pretty much the exact same time, even though throughout each of these chapters, especially by 289, I mean, we have like a whole bunch of different things happening. And so the concept or the thought process here is that basically they had lost the fight against Lucifero, and by extension the Zogratis siblings, a bunch of different times, and a bunch of things may have gone wrong during the course of the fight, but through the power of time magic, they were able to basically run it back, basically like jump timelines to like a point where, like, okay, at 636, instead of us getting absolutely obliterated and dying, instead of actually, for example, in 280, right, we have Lilith and Nama being exiting. We have like a the horde of demons coming out. We have the giant demon being basically about to be taken down by Marileona. We have Xenon being basically taken out by, Yuno, but then them actually having a huge power up, getting to 100% devil power, and so on and so forth. The idea here would be that all these things, like all these events that happen and all the points where the clock is shown, is kind of referencing the idea that, like, oh, you know, we may have lost at that point, but instead of, like, for example, when Vanica is attacking Charlotte, instead of Vanica instantly killing Charlotte, she's able to like counter Vanica. Or instead of Yuno immediately getting obliterated by 100% Xenon, he's able to block it, and he's able to like last long enough to like get more power-ups and become stronger to be able to eventually kill him, and then, you know, so on and so forth till the fight concludes. And this is important because in the most recent chapter, we see the clock and the time says, let's say 7:26. Well, not 26, but 7. Yeah, I guess that'd be 26. Or like maybe 28, something like that. But the point is, the time, considering that we're saying he defeated Lucifero by this point, and the last time the clock was shown was like a long time ago. We're saying that was about an hour ago in real time, but so many things happen over the course of that hour. It's kind of like, you know, it makes you think, like, oh, you know, how was time changed? Like, how much time has really passed in terms of like over the course of like the full scope of the fight, that kind of thing. And something like that, we wouldn't really be able to think about that if it wasn't for the fact of the reveal. And that's just like in the scope of like the current moment, in which we could even say the fact that Lucifero lost in the end of the fight was, well, it definitely was a part of Lucifero's and Lucius's plan, but it could be that, you know, people had a problem with the fact that Lucifero just died. It's like, oh, you know, we don't have any good villains in Black Clover. Well, maybe this is our big Aizen moment. Like, it was all set up by Lucius. Like, it was always supposed to end up in this situation where Lucifero shows up, he dies, he gets his heart stolen, and that's the only way the plan continues. And that Lucius would have never have let the resistance lose to Lucifero. Like, he was always gonna lose. That was always just gonna happen. And this also gives a thought to, like, where does Asta play into this? Where Julius had the prediction coming out of the time skip and everything. He's like telling Asta, like, hey, you know, you're gonna die at some point. And so, you know, now we gotta like recontextualize that, like, oh, well, obviously Julius seems to have not known that he is Lucius, and that, you know, his magic comes from a devil, and that's not just like normal magic or anything like that. Like, is he like kind of like running parallel to Lucius's goals, where like he says that he's going to die, but because he obviously doesn't like know why he's gonna die, like he doesn't realize that the reason why he's probably gonna die is because of Lucius and by extension himself. There's a lot to think about here. There's a lot of nuance going on here. And going further on that, just going on to the idea of like, oh, Julius seems to have, based on the chapter, as we see his face and the way like the reveal happens, and the fact that he doesn't immediately like attack Damnatio in his like child form, he like kind of like, it seems like what likely was happening was that Julius was about to tell Damnatio to like reduce all his magic so that then he wouldn't be able to cast any spells just in case something like odd's about to happen, that sort of thing. But by that point, as we know, Lucius takes over and like basically wipes Damnatio. I mean, in the chapter, what actually happens is that he pauses him, but I highly doubt Damnatio is going to be alive after this. Like, I feel he's just going to get bodied. I feel like that's just going to be how it goes. But digressing, the point is that Julius doesn't seem to like know that he's Lucius. So the interesting part to think about is like, is Julius just Julius, or is Julius kind of like the puppet of Lucius, so to speak? So like, for example, with like the elf arc, right? Now, Lucius's plan seems to like depend on the idea that, you know, his siblings eventually open the gates. Yami has to live, William has to live, and be in control of his body, and all these things need to happen in the course of the over the course of the situation, so that then eventually his siblings will open the gates, and then eventually Lucifer will get out. Lucifer will be in some way, shape, or form defeated, and then I forgot his name. Let's just call him Devil A. Devil A will steal his heart and then by extension bring it to Lucius. Like, all these things have to happen, and for them to happen, it's like events just have to have kind of sort of have to have played out the way that they ended up playing out. Like, for example, but guy with the glasses, I'll put him up here. Scientific guy who's like evil and was like doing weird stuff with the Diamond Kingdom, right? He had to have weirdly rearranged the Cliftoff tree so that then Lucifer would have gotten out early, because with all the demons coming out, it would have been, I mean, maybe Lucifer, we could say Lucifer like kills every other like top devil, but doubt, you know, there's a lot of doubt there. So it's kind of like each event had to happen the way it did. And like we're saying, like Julius dying early on in the show, it's kind of like, okay, like, was that also like secretly seeded by Lucius? Like, he was kind of like setting up that situation, because with the way everything played out, it's like there's not too many variations of the events that could have happened in the story where we still get to this point where Lucius has the opportunity to get the devil heart, have his whoever, I guess his devil accomplice, come meet with him and be like, you know, more or less no worse for wear in comparison to everybody else. You understand? So, like, with that being said, it brings up a lot, like, it really does change the entire essence of what we know about Julius to have this like situation where it's like, you know, all these things that Julius did and like fostering Yami and William, was that really just perpetrated by Lucius, where he kind of like forced, well, like, secretly, like, you know, since it's his body, right, maybe like subconsciously Lucius is like in his head like, oh, you know, Yami, he's that guy, you should really take him under your wing, you know, just saying. And like same thing for William, and so on and so forth, like encouraging him to become stronger, and by extension, you know, dying and then coming back, you know, them repledging their loyalty to him and everything, and like the setup with like him mentioning like, oh, Spade Kingdom's dangerous, they're gonna attack, etc., like pointing the direction of Spade Kingdom so that then they would interact with them, and by extension his siblings would have the whole interaction with them. And even with his siblings getting defeated, it seems like possibly that was also a part of the plan too, where he was kind of like playing all these different pieces that technically could help him against each other, so that then he would have this eventual outcome where he's the last villain standing, like he's the strongest man standing, where Julius is completely, well, Julius is him, so it kind of didn't matter. And then with like, you know, Yuna and Asta, like, I mean, they're dangerous, but it's kind of like they don't even know. At this point, nobody even knows that Lucius has showed up. And considering that Lucius seems to have planned out this whole situation, I mean, we can't even say that he's necessarily going to reveal himself suddenly and be like, well, you know, I'm the big bad evil guy, so forget the Clover Kingdom, I'll wipe them all out. Like, we don't even know what his plan really is. We just know all these huge events and all these other villains that have appeared and come and gone have all been a part of his plan. And, like, he accounted for them, and them losing or winning or whatever happened with them to this point. So there's just a lot to think about. What I think will happen in the return of Black Clover, I feel like at this point we can't have Julius come back out, not unless it turns out Lucius has some type of mind of magic, like that's his natural magic, and then his alternate magic from the devil is obviously Astaroth's time magic, right? So if he has mind magic, it's possible that maybe he turns back into Julius and changes Damnatio's mind, and so like makes Damnatio forget like the reveal. And so Lucius continues to like hide in plain sight, but maybe like at this point he's like more active now, where Julius starts like acting weird, or maybe Lucius like pretends to be Julius, but like maybe like messes with his time to like make him seem like he's young Julius, but in reality it's really just Lucius, but like with like dark hair, because obviously they look the same. It just seems like his hair is blonde. So that's definitely a point. Also, just to point out, I think his magic's mind magic. It's been previously theorized that the four Zogratis siblings, their magics kind of match up to like make a human body. Got bones, blood, just the human body itself, so muscles, tendons, all the works. And then what they're missing currently, all three of the fourth part would be the mind. They have a mind, they have a brain, anything like that. And this could play into how Julius is even able to come into existence, that Lucius basically does mind magic on himself, and then basically erases his memory and creates like a wholly different person who he lives in kind of like the subconscious of, as I mentioned before. And so that, I mean, like I said, the idea of like him like kind of like continuing to use Julius at this point as like a ticking time bomb, so to say, and like, you know, manipulating things even further, and then eventually maybe it gets revealed, like, you know, maybe he reveals himself to everybody, or maybe like Asta or Yami are able to like kind of notice through like Ki that something's going on, or like Julius is acting weird, so on and so forth, and then we get the big reveal. I mean, there's a lot of things, there really is a lot that the author can do here. I mean, this situation like pretty masterfully done. Like really, if there was a time to really have a great villain, this would be it. Like, this is the moment in time where, like, you know, you can really like get into his artist writer bag, so to speak. I feel like I've extrapolated quite a bit on what could be going on with Lucius and Julius and time magic and possible mind magic and so on and so forth. So I suppose I'll leave the end of the video here. If any other interesting information comes out within the next 3 months that in regards to Black Clover, or just what's going to be going on with the continuation of the story, I'll definitely be back with another video. But with all that being said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you dislike the video, drop a dislike. If you have any theories, any thoughts, just like the video, you want to leave a comment and say thank you for making nice content, leave a comment. And if you're feeling really generous to the channel, drop a subscription. I appreciate it. And with that all being said, thank you again for watching the video, and the doc is out.